ever tried to do this, but I think I got it figured out. I sent you a link, Bryan. Now, hey, Remy. Hey, girl, I see you. Remy, I have to look at my phone for the chat because I can't see it through Google Hangouts. So we're just waiting for everybody else. I sent Bryan a link. If he didn't get it, he'll have to tell me. But I went up there and invited him. I'll do it again. Yeah, I'm going to start doing this right here so I can get people to come on and talk with me, Remy. Hey, Samara. Girls, it took me a minute to figure this out. So I hope he comes on. Yeah, but Remy, this is the first time I've tried to use Google Hangouts to do like a split screen. So it took me like a couple minutes to get it right. It's pretty easy though once you do it once. BR. Make sure he's get the link. I sent him one link, but it was it was when I messed up. There he is. Invite him. Now, well, you can use Google Hangouts. You can have the Google Hangouts app, Remy. But if you want to do a live stream through YouTube and like have a split screen with somebody, you just go into your YouTube studio and schedule a live event. And then you got a little option there, and you can hit Google Hangouts. Yeah. I hope he finds this. Stupid battery. I wonder if he knows I'm on here. I wonder if it's working right. See, on this Google on the Chromebook, when you use it through YouTube, you can't see your chat. So that's why I'm like looking at the phone talking. I'm so used to looking at the chat into the camera, you know. I don't know if he got it or not. I'm gonna text him real quick. And see if he got it. I hope it's his cell phone sent you a link because I'm very interested in what he's got to say about Darlie. Let me get back to my chat. William, you can't get the battery out of the back of this phone. Sue sent me a message. How come I tell her I'm on live now? I don't know where they're all at. Well, I tried to set up a couple different live videos, so they're probably at the wrong one. It's the first time I'd ever tried to do this, but it's, even if they don't come over here, it's a good learning experience for me to learn how to do it. But I did send Bryan a text right then. So, see, I'm going to get my forensic pathologist friend to come on and do this with me also. I don't think anybody can find where we're at, Remy. You found it though, didn't you? I'll send him another link. I sent him another one. I don't know where he's at, girls. It's my fault because I didn't know how to set it up right. I tried to do it like I think about 3 different times, and I just now got it to work. First, I was having trouble finding Bryan's email, so he had to call me and tell me his email. Then I set up one, and it didn't turn out right. This is so weird, y'all. I'm trying to look at my chat right here and talk, so I forget about this, and I think I'm being filmed through here. It's so crazy. Yeah, you can. I'd say, Remy, I didn't know that about the Gmail, about making phone calls through Gmail. I didn't know about that till the other day. Can somebody please go tell Bryan to come on and ask him if the link sent correctly? I mean, it had to have. It let me tag when I typed in his email to send the link. It let me tag his name. So, oh my goodness. Y'all, I tried 3 different times to try to set this up. I figured it out. I sent him a link. I've sent it like 3 times. But anyways, I tried it 3 different times, so I guess y'all was in the wrong place. Then I had it set up right, and I thought that I saw my live on there, and I deleted it. I thought that was that live I tried to set up. It didn't work right. And here I am talking to the phone because I have to read my chats through the phone because on the Chromebook, when you use Google Hangouts, I can't see y'all's live chat. So, come on, Bryan. I sent him a text. Yeah, Remy, I just sent him a text. If he don't find it, it's okay. I appreciate him trying to take the time to help me out a little bit, though. I really do appreciate it, Bryan. I like Bryan. He's a nice person. Hey, just came back. Hey, Valerie. Yes, Sue. Somebody go over and tell him to come on. He's in the wrong place. But I sent him a link. Maybe he's having trouble with the link. So it sends invites at CC's Live. Puts in his email. There's his name, Bryan STJohn. Tag, invite. I've sent him 2 or 3 invites. Invitation posted, it said. Hey guys, we're going to do this more often. That way, look at me, I'm still talking to the phone because I'm reading my chats from there. We're going to do this more often. And maybe some of you guys can come on and chat on some of the lives with me if you'd like to. If anyone's interested in doing that, let me know. And another thing we might start doing, I might set up a Google Hangouts thing and get a bunch of y'all's emails, and a bunch of us go into Google Hangouts and have a private chat without everybody in YouTube watching. We can do that sometimes as well. Oh, Bryan. So my chats, okay. I thought my chats weren't showing up. Well, anyways, we'll talk about Darlie till he gets here. Interesting little fact about Darlie that I found out on Will's channel the other day is that there was a very expensive painting hanging in the Routier home. And the painting had been removed from the wall and placed behind the couch, so it appeared like, they was trying to save their painting so blood wouldn't get on it because it was expensive. So I'd like to ask Bryan about that. I'd also like to ask him, honey, there's no messages. See, there's no messages. The last message I see on here is Ebeth. Ha ha ha. We're in the wrong place waiting for you. That's the only message that's on here. That's the last message in the chat that I have. So I don't know. See? Hello? Hey. The chat's not showing up. The last one I have is from Ebeth.
You need to tell everybody to go and click on your name and restart the live because he just typed his email in the new chat. He's waiting on you to go see if you got it right or something.
Okay. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, if you scroll in your messages, you'll see he's in there.
Well, that's the problem is I only see like a few minutes. Hold on, I have to go in here and see what's going on.
Scroll up, you'll see his message where he said, I'm here, and he gave his email.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me see. Let me see if I can figure it out. All right, bye. Love you. Bye. Yeah. There he is. There he is. They just now showed up, Bryan. I'm sitting here talking away, and y'all's messages. The last message that showed up before she messaged me, was way up here at the top, and it was Ebeth. That was, as she said, ha ha ha, we were in the wrong room waiting on you. But now they're on here. Okay, I got it. Sorry, guys. So Bryan is, okay, Bryan, let me send it again. That's exactly what I sent it to, Bryan. Let me do it again. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Bryan, there you are. I'm tagging your name, and I'm sending you an invite. Yeah, this crap is a lot of crap. When y'all were saying y'all were messaging me on my part, I can't see it. They just now loaded. After Sue called me, the messages appeared. What a. I can see y'all's messages now. Yes, please let it work, y'all. This is getting on my nerves. I put his damn email in there, and it popped up his name and the invite thing. So I tagged his name, and it pushed invite. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times. So, see, this is all new to me about the Google Hangouts. Yeah, is it working, Bryan? Because I am sending it correctly. I go up here, invite people, send invite as CC's life, and you type in his email. He might be trying, yeah. And yeah, so I don't know. It could be something with Google, but I know for a fact I'm doing it right. I've used Google Hangouts before to video chat with people. No link in your email. Okay, Brian. I think I know how to do that. Because I'm sending you the link. I am tagging your name and I'm sending you the link. Hold on, Brad. I got it, baby. I have figured it out. Let's see. See if you get it now. It said message sent. Okay, guys. See, when I was going up here to do the link, it says share the permanent link bookmark and come back. Okay. Well, I didn't go up here and push mail. There's the mail and Google Plus here. I was just going down here and sending the invite. So he should have the link now. If he's not, guys, I apologize. I can't help it. I don't. It's the first time. But this is a good learning experience. Everybody be patient. Now we can all do Google Hangouts if we want. Oh, ask Marley. Let's see if he gets it. I hope so. I'm so crazy, Olivia. You know I'm crazy, girl. Can y'all still see me even though I'm pulling up emails and stuff? I didn't know if that got in the way of your live videos or not. I'm going to send it to him again. Nah.
Ta-da.
You got it? Oh my God, there you are, dude.
Imagine that.
Brian, I am so sorry, man. You know, like, I don't know how to do this shit, right?
There you are.
Let me turn my YouTube down. Imagine that. There we go.
Okay.
Like, I don't know how to do this shit, right? There you are.
Let me turn my YouTube down. Now let's figure out what we got to turn down here.
Yeah, okay.
We'll still have a little. Still have a little.
Good Lord, my ears are busted.
All right, let's turn the microphone down. We'll still have a little. Still have a little.
Good.
Okay, I turned my mic down. Now I can't hear nothing.
You sound so much better.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
I had to turn that down. Okay, now we're good. They can hear us. I can't see the chat though, but that's okay. People, you can shoot the chat questions at me if they ask them.
Okay. Tell us what you know. Tell us the facts of how that you believe. What convinced you of Darlie's guilt? How did you go from a Darlie supporter to changing your mind? Can you explain that to us?
Well, I tell you, I stood for Darlie for a long time. That free Darlie group that you see over there, that was my group, and I was friendly with her mom and all the top supporters. And the thing that really changed it for me is when I caught her mother lying to the whole group. I mean, Darren put up a Facebook page, but this is probably this is so many years ago. But Darren put up a Facebook page, and this was at a time where I used to talk to her mother all the time, Darlie Key. And so I messaged her on Facebook, and I said, "You see, Darren put up this Facebook page, and it didn't say anything about his kids, nothing about the crime, nothing about helping Darlie." And so Darlie Key went over there and looked at it, And she come back in my messages and she was like, you know, I always thought he had something to do with it. I always thought he was guilty, blah, blah, blah. Well, back then you never accused Darren. Yeah, you just could never do that. They would kick you out of the groups in a minute. So I got into groups, and the reason that I was a Darlie supporter is because I thought Darren had something to do with it. I thought Darren set up that insurance scam, and so people came in there and it went wrong. But we were talking about that. We were talking about Darlie Key in one of the supporter groups, and I told people, I said, well, I'm here because I think Darren had something to do with it. Right? Everybody started jumping on me because you just didn't blame Darren back then. This is 10 years ago. And I said, now, wait a minute. I said, now, Darlie's own mother thinks he had something to do with it. Right? And she pops in the room. She says, I most certainly did not say that. Blah, blah, blah. So I took what she just told me in chat, put it in the room, and everybody started jumping on me for it. And I'm like, okay, now why is she lying? Why is she telling me one thing in chat, but in the room she's saying something different? So that's what started it. But then the people from the non-support side, which when I was on running Free Darlie, I never looked at the non-supporter stuff. But Pamela Collins came over there, and she runs Justice for Devin and Damon. She came into my group, and she kept on trying to tell me Darlie was guilty. Darlie was guilty. And I told her, I said, if you say that one more time in here, I'm going to boot you. And she said it, so I booted her. But then she started getting in my emails and sending me the facts to the case. You know, so I started to listen to her. And I think the main reason that I felt that she was innocent is because I felt sorry for her. You don't want to think that a mother can do this. Right. But that's why I switched over. And then when I switched over, all the supporters started hating on me. Some of this stuff you see on YouTube about me with these videos that Robert Reed had, that's from Darlie supporters. You know, they've been doing this for 10 years since I left.
I was attacked over you when I made that video talking about you by Darlie supporters.
Darlie supporters are ruthless.
They told me that they had spent years fighting for her freedom, and you had done nothing but harass their family.
I never
Darlie's family.
I tell you what, when I left support, I had my free Darlie, and I just told people, I said, you know what? I don't think she's innocent. I can't do this anymore. Here's your new administrator. And I left it. I was just going to leave it alone. But then they started harassing me. They started talking shit about me. And I go back at people if I see that. So that's how it all started, because I left support. They didn't like it. Because I was really out there like, Darlie's innocent. Period. I didn't have the facts. I started to look at the facts. I was going on emotion. Because you look at Darlie, and she's very charming.
Right.
She's got that little girly voice. And then big old brows, and she'll make you're going to feel sorry for her. Mm-hmm. But they started attacking me, and it's been going on for 10 years. But a lot of that, they don't like it when I prove them wrong.
Right.
And there's one or two that are like Stephanie Hopkins, the one you were talking about with the Free Darlie. Now I get along with her, but she will not debate the case. She gets upset. She loves Darlie. Darlie's her friend, and she don't want to hear it. But outside of talking to Darlie, Stephanie's a sweet person, but she doesn't really know the facts. Her point. This is her stance. Darlie's innocent, and that's it. She don't want to debate it. But there's like Darren Gross, her new boyfriend. I talked to him. He's going to come in on my show, and I'm going to let him do it the way he wants. I'm not going to debate him. But some of the ones that have been around for a long time, like Gia and Stephanie, and they don't harass us. These new ones that don't. It's these newer ones that don't know the case. And when they say, well, no, this happened, and I show them the facts, well, you're a fat slob and your kids, and blah. They've called children's services on us 3 times in the last 10 years. Of course, it's nothing. It's just, it's enough to aggravate you, but it's never nothing.
Yeah, that's a low blow. That's how people, when they get mad at you, they do that CPS stuff. It's a low blow. It's stupid.
I tell you what, that is a very low blow. Without getting too much off subject, CPS harms children. So for someone that's standing up for Darlie and Devin and Damon to send someone that will harm your child over to you says a lot about her support system.
Yeah. Why would you want any more children harmed? There's 2 already brutally murdered.
Right. And then, everybody knows my son's case. So when this happened with my son, they ate that up. They ate that. I can't blame them. But what makes
Yeah.
you said that you were kind of on the fence and you don't understand the case so well. So what makes you, where are you stuck at? Where are
I'm
you stuck at?
stuck. I'm stuck with the bruising on her arm, and I'm stuck on the part where Darren wanted to. He did an insurance scam. I think I'm correct once, and he wanted to do another one on the house or something. That is bothering me. Those bruises on her arm make me think that maybe he caught her doing it, or either there was an intruder. I really don't know. The more I talk about it, the more confused I get, to be
Well, see,
honest.
the medical facts show that the bruising, they think the bruising, when you see those pictures of her standing there in her gray shirt and the shorts holding her arms out, that's not at the hospital. That's 4 days later. That's
Oh,
at the Rowlett Police Department. So when you look at her in her hospital bed, you don't see that bruising. You see a little bit where she got the stab in the arm, but you don't see that bruising. You have nurses that testify they didn't see the bruising. You had a couple of doctors that said that bruising wasn't there that night. And one doctor said he felt that the bruising occurred after she left the hospital, which means to me, which seems to us, that Darren helped her get that bruising. He didn't want to lose his wife. And he was really, they got a word for what he was. It starts with a P, it ends with a D. That's what he was. He would do what she wanted most of the time. But
you know what I find strange? That Darren, when the cops were at the house that night, that Darren was talking about Darlie being a big titty blonde. I find that strange.
well, he may have said that during one interview, but I think a lot of that is sensationalism. You know, because I think that they try to make it sound like that they walked in there and started talking to Darren, and he said, "Oh, she's got these big boobs." It probably didn't
Right.
happen that way. You know, they lie. The media will sell whatever. You know, he probably didn't come right out and say that. But I know that he tried to get in the ambulance with her, and they wouldn't let him in, and he just went and sat on the curb in front of the house for like 30 minutes, and he was just baffled by all of it. And he did tell Lieutenant Grant Jack. He said, "This has got to be the biggest thing that's happened in Rowlett." That's one of the things that he did say. When that comes from a cop like that, I believe it. But when it comes to the media, I don't.
Right.
I think that Darren, I think he knew that she was losing her mind and he didn't get her the help that she needed. And I think that he realized that when he came down them stairs, he realized what she did because she had probably been showing him signs. Well, you know, she was going to eat all those pills and she called him at work. He had to come home. She had the pills out. This was about 3-4 weeks before the murders. She was going to kill herself then. So he knew that she had some kind of issues. I believe as soon as he walked down them steps and saw that them boys laying there, I believe he knew right in his head that she did something.
I kind of believe that. I kind of think that to myself too, that like maybe it's one of my theories that maybe he came down the stairs and he realized that, you know, she killed the kids and he tried to cover for her.
Yeah. As far as the insurance scams, he had a white Jaguar, and he had that car stolen. Darlie couldn't drive the Jaguars. If you ever been in one, they're like Corvettes. You have to be kind of tall because the gas pedal and the brake pedal is way back, so she couldn't hardly drive it. So he had the car stolen, and he got away with it. He got a payout on that. But Darlie knew all about these insurance scams. People try to pretend like she didn't know about them. She knew all about these insurance scams. You know, I interviewed the housekeeper. They tried to get according to her, they tried to get the housekeeper to help with these scams. So Darlie knew about these scams. See, I didn't know that.
She claims that she didn't know about them until that lie detector, right?
Well, yeah, but if you read in the Hood County News with Kathy Cruz, they talk about where her and Darlie Key were over at her mom's house, and they were talking about these insurance scams, and it upset Darlie so much that she got up and walked away. This was before the murders. Darlie knew about these scams. She didn't want no. I don't think she wanted as much part in it. But you notice when Darren says, "I wanted to hire people to break into my house and take my stuff, and we can do the money later." You notice he's never named a name. Who did you tell? Because if some intruder broke in your house and killed your kids, and you've been telling people to break in your house, why don't you name the people you told? Because he can't.
Because it was a lie.
Well, they'll sue his ass. Yeah. He's never named a name to tell him to name one person he asked. So I think the insurance scam came up about the time of the appeals. I think some of it's a half truth that was good for Darlie's appeals.
Right.
You got to think about it. Well, I know that I asked you to break in my house, and 2 weeks later, somebody broke in my house and killed my kids. I would send the detectives to talk to that person, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Yes.
He can't do that.
Another thing that bothers me, hold on, let me put my cigarette out. I didn't have an ashtray in there. Another thing that bothers me as a mother and as a woman, if I wake up and an intruder's in my house and he's leaving my house and he's got a knife, I'm damn sure not going to chase him. I'm going to let him go on out that house. I'm going to go straight to my son. I would have been petrified. I would not have chased him, but everybody's different. But that bothers me. That's weird.
Well, you got to think about this too. The intruder left the only person that could, he left the adult alive and dropped his weapon. Okay, now you see this guy and you have a weapon. He's going out your garage door, right? You got a weapon. Now, maybe she already knows that her children are hurt because she says Damon woke her up. Now she's got the weapon. Why turn around? A lot of women that I know, but I come from a different, I live in, I don't live in Rowlett, but a lot of women I know, once they got that knife and they saw somebody, they're going after him. Or they're going to chase him and scream because why would he arm her? Why would he drop that knife? It doesn't make any sense to me that she would have it and then turn around.
Yeah.
Okay, now you got a weapon. And then she gave two different stories. She told, at first she said she woke up because the guy was on top of her, right? And then she said later on, they showed that there wasn't a real fight there on that couch, right? So she changed her story to her 5-year-old son, who was stabbed 6 times through his body, calmly walked over to her and said, "Mommy, mommy," tapped her on the shoulder. You got kids, right?
Right.
5-year-olds that are mortally wounded don't normally remain calm.
They would be screaming for blood and murder.
Yes, and she described Damon as a child that would do that with throw fits. He was more like a mama's boy.
Right.
So that didn't make sense to me either. It never made sense to me, even as a supporter. That didn't make sense to me. But I didn't question it as a supporter. I just didn't question it. And let me see. You were talking about Stephanie Hopkins, her Free Darlie channel, and she's the sweetest person in the world. She really is. But she will not argue the case with you because it's easy to trip her up on the facts. And she knows this. She just loves Darlie, and Darlie's innocent, and that's it. So you can't debate it with her. Right. I was talking to her one time where they said that the intruder could have ran out the front door right past the police officer. If you've heard that story, right?
Right.
Well, I showed her trial testimony where the neighbor that was across the street, his name was Go Rush. He had his window open because it was kind of hot that night. And his window was right there where he can look right down, and there's Darren's house. And he knew Darren, he knew Darlie. He said the lights from the police officer woke him up, so he looked out the window, and he saw Darren come out, and he saw the cop pull the gun and bring Darren right back in there. And she goes, "Yeah, but that Go Rush, that first responding officer, Go Rush, you can't believe him." I said, Go Rush was the neighbor. Waddell was the first officer. She didn't know the difference between the neighbor and the first responding officer. And she was going to visit Darlie at this point. And I'm like, Stephanie, you really need to know this case before you go visit her. You should be sure for yourself that she's innocent. You just got the first responding officer, everybody that studies this goes, they know his name is Waddell. And so she didn't know, she doesn't know the facts. And she don't care about the facts. She cares that she thinks Darlie's innocent, and that's it. That's why she don't let you comment.
See, I don't know all the facts, but I'm interested in learning all the facts. And I have a forensic pathologist that works for the FBI that is going to help me. And to be honest, she said that the forensics do point, in her opinion, to Darlie. Mm-hmm. And she's going to explain some more things about Darlie. She only told me one little thing about Darlie's past, but she said Darlie had a past and that she had told Darren when they were dating that someone tried to kidnap her.
DeVry. I'll tell you what happened. Darren's graduation party, Darren graduated from DeVry. He got for computers, and it was his graduation party. She went with him And since the attention wasn't focused on Darlie, she wanted to go home. So Darren didn't want to go. It was his graduation party. So she walked home, and she did make up this story about some guy tried to jump out on her and rape her for the attention. She didn't call the police, but she made up this story. So it's like, what do they call that? Marriage choosing by proxy, or they call it. She was just seeking attention.
Yeah, attention seeker.
She was, yeah. So that story is, we don't know how true it is, but it's been around for a long time. We can't prove it, but if the FBI if the forensic scientists is saying that, then there must be some validity to it. But
there must be, because she is a pretty smart lady, and she also she works for the FBI, and she does that profiling people, and she's going to profile and tell me what she thinks about Darren and Darlie.
They had FBI profiler Alan Brantley worked on that case, and the thing that struck odd to him was one, the method of attack was different on Devin and Damon than it was on Darlie. I mean, they had wounds on them that they were trying to kill him. It was personal. Darlie's wounds were a hesitation mark, a stab wound, and she's the adult. And another thing that Alan Brantley said from the FBI is he couldn't understand why this intruder who was trying to rape her didn't give her any commands or say anything to her at all. Usually in a case where they try to say that he wanted to rape her, well, the best tools he had to get her to submit was those two kids. You do this or I'm going to do this. Well, he comes in and eliminates the kids. So. But he didn't give her any commands. He didn't say anything at all, and that's kind of strange.
And see, that's the one thing that bothers me is about this case is how brutally they were stabbed. But she didn't have those. She didn't have chest wounds. Why didn't they stab her in the chest? If they're going to brutally murder two children, why did they just do a half-assed job on her?
Well, if you think about it's supposed to be, let's say it's an insurance scam gone wrong. Well, if he did, let's say he talked to people, we'll be gone this night. And then they get in there and they see everybody laying there, then they would know, okay, this ain't the night. Turn around and leave. Nobody's awake. That she had 14 pieces of jewelry laying on the counter there, right where the intruder would come in. I've been in the house. Right where the intruder would come in. One of them was a $6,000 ladies Rolex watch. This intruder didn't take them on the way out. Robbery was, he could have came in and seen them sleeping and just grabbed all that stuff and left. And that would have been the end of it. Nobody would have knew nothing if it was
if there was an intruder and he didn't take it. If an intruder come in, you would think, and they're going to see that jewelry as they come in laying on the counter, you would think they would just automatically grab it,
Yeah, that might have been enough. If it was just a random person and they got in and they saw all that right there, he would have been able to see from coming out of that utility. He would have been able to see Darlie on the couch and the two boys. You can see just over that. He would have got in and saw all that jewelry and said, okay, that's enough for me. Yeah, I hit a lick and I'm gone.
Okay, Bryan, we got some questions for you. From Sue, Soul Sister. Why didn't the husband hear her screaming or his kids screaming?
Well, Darlie wasn't screaming. Darlie never said she was screaming. Darlie never said she heard the kids screaming. You got to think, Darren was way upstairs. And Darlie was sleeping feet away from them. Why didn't she hear them scream? Because Darlie never said she screamed. He did. And Darren said that he heard the wine glass break because the pitch of the crystal is what woke him up. People's like, well, how could he hear that wine glass, but he couldn't hear the kids screaming? Because the pitch of the crystal is sharp. And you also got to think that beside Darren's bed in the ashtray, they found half a joint. So I'm assuming that the man smoked half a do before he went to sleep, because I do that and it helps you sleep.
It sure does.
So, to be honest with you, so for Darren not to hear anything is not strange at all. What's strange is these little boys were feet away from her. Look at Darlie's reason for being on the couch. What's Darlie's reason for being on the couch? She had been sleeping down there for a week because Drake rolling around in his crib would wake her up to the point where she couldn't sleep. But a man can walk in and put 10 stab wounds on her kids and she ain't wake up. She didn't hear nothing.
I heard that she was asleep downstairs because they had been into an argument about finances.
Yeah, they had been fighting for about a week. And if you read Darlie's, and I know this personally from Darlie herself, they hadn't slept together for a week. And her wedding ring was one of those things that was in that jewelry on the stand. And Darlie supporters say, they try to say, well, I take my wedding ring off to go to sleep. Come on. I don't know any woman that does that. That doesn't mean they don't, but I don't know any woman that does that. Now maybe if your wedding ring's got a rock on it and you're one of the people that sleep with your hands up on, maybe. But her wedding ring was off, and one of the detectives noticed that. The night that this happened, they just wrote that Darren went to bed, lovey-dovey, kissy-kissy, good night, sleep tight. But later on, they come back and said they had an argument that night, and she asked for a separation. Now, why didn't they say that the first time? The first initial statement that they wrote down was a lie.
Yeah, if they didn't have anything to hide,
right?
I don't see why they would lie.
Right, you have two parents fighting, and then an hour later, their kids are dead. Where are the cops going to look at?
Maybe they lied because, I don't know, maybe they thought that it would look bad on them. I do know that I sleep by myself a lot of the times, and it's not because of fights or anything, but anyways, that's strange that they would lie about that.
Well, the thing with her sleeping by herself, because the baby would simply move around in his crib. Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was strange.
Well, how come it didn't wake Darren up? It didn't wake Devin up. It didn't wake nobody up but Darlie. It didn't even wake the baby up. He would move around in his crib and not wake up and start screaming. The only one that woke up was Darlie. So instead of fixing the problem of the baby moving around in her crib, she just said, oh, to hell with it. I'm just going to go sleep on the couch. It don't make no sense to me. They had been fighting for a couple weeks. That's why she was on the couch.
She also had a journal, something about she wrote them a letter apologizing. She was going to take her own life.
She said, I don't want you to grow up to see a miserable person every time you look at me. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. These are words that were in there. Your dad or your father will take care of you. This was 3 weeks before the murders. Something that she didn't think anybody would see. I think that some people think that she intended to kill herself and the kids. And she failed to kill herself. Darren's mother was a CSB worker, a CASA worker. So if she would have tried to pick up and leave Darren, she had no job skills. All the income, Darren took care of her since she was 18. Where was she going to go? She didn't want to go back to her mother's. She would have probably lost her kids to Darren. That's what I think she was thinking.
Right.
Because Darren's mother was a CSB worker, and she did end up getting custody of Drake.
So my friend that's a forensic pathologist, she has a theory about how the sock got in the alley. And I don't know if you heard me say it last night on my video, but she thinks when Darren ran to the other house to get the nurse for help, the next door neighbor, that the sock could have been attached to Darren, and that's how it got in the alley. But she said that's just a theory of hers.
Well, the thing of it is, Karen Neal's house was directly across the street. It wasn't nowhere near the back alley.
Oh.
Karen Neal's house was directly across the street. They're the ones that Karen and Terry Neal, I believe his name was. He passed away in 2015. But she was a nurse, and Darren went over there. So the only way the sock could have fell out was from Darren's front door to their front door. The sock was actually, you would have to go around the back of the house and go down it was almost 3 houses down. So that the theory of it falling out of his pants is incorrect if she's using it that way, because he only went directly across the street.
Okay.
Now Darren had a pair of Reeboks that were sitting there by the front door. The tongues were out, the laces were out, and Darlie's blood was in smaller spots all around it. What we think is that she slipped them shoes on and ran that sock around there. Then she came back in to see Damon still moving. Damon crawled 25 feet away from where he was actually first stabbed at. It looked to me where they found him up against the wall that he was trying to get upstairs to his daddy. But we think that was at the sink getting ready to slit her throat. And she saw him again. She saw him crawling and hit him 2 more times. There's blood splatter all over that wall and all over that area. They could tell that he crawled 25 feet away, according to them.
If nobody did anything wrong in that house, and those two say that they didn't have anything to do with those murders, then who cleaned up those bloody footprints and that blood on that kitchen cabinet where she was supposedly standing when she cut her throat?
Okay, now I know that there was a cleanup at the sink. I haven't heard anything about any footprints, but I do know that the footprints lead away from the sink. They don't lead to it, if you think about it. You got footprints going away from the sink, but you don't have any footprints going to it. If you think about that, it tells us that she slit her throat.
Now, Bryan, I may be mistaken. You'll have to go watch. But on the episode of Forensic Files, Invisible Intruder, they say that they spray luminol, and it shows that blood had been on the kitchen cabinet there under the sink, and there was bloody footprints that glowed.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Well, what they threw, they didn't use luminol for the bloody footprints. They threw down a like a dust, and they did find footprints on the tile, the floor, but they were only leading away from the sink. There's no footprints going to the sink, which is kind of weird. It tells you that it tells us that's where she slit her throat at, because the footprints with the blood.
And something that you left me a comment. You said that the necklace was not embedded in her neck.
Nope. And I tried to contact Susan Sarandon over that, making that statement, because that necklace never went inside the emergency operating room. When she came out, they put her on a stretcher, and you can check the testimony on this. They had her on a stretcher. That's when she told, you got to find, she was telling Darren, I promise you, I'll find it. Well, they went to get that necklace off of her so they could put a bandage over it. And when they went to pull it, the blood dries up real quick. So it was already caught in the blood. When they went to pull it, she kind of grimaced. The paramedic said he just taped over it till she got to the hospital. And then when they got to the hospital, I spoke to Jody Fitz, the nurse that took care of her. I talked to him personally. He said that when they pulled that, and this is in testimony too, when they pulled that bandage off, the necklace came right with it. And then they cleaned her up and they pushed her into surgery. So it never went into surgery. Susan Sarandon said it was so deeply embedded into her wound that it had to be removed surgically. That is wrong. And I kept trying to go at Susan Sarandon and her people about it, but she's just a person that wants to make money off of somebody else's. That was an incorrect statement, and we can prove it. It never went in there.
I had no idea that was Susan Sarandon on that documentary, Death Row Stories.
Yeah, well, she played nurse Prejean. She played, she was death penalty. She's against the death penalty, and which is fine because a lot of things about it are screwy. But when you are against the death penalty and you put out misinformation about a death penalty inmate, well, that's not right, because that's misinformation. It makes her seem, if people hear that, they say, wow, she's got to be innocent. That necklace,
that's what it got me thinking. That's what it had me thinking too.
Right. And don't trust me. Go back and look for yourself. That necklace never went in there. The thing of it is, Darren was on the stand, and they were showing that necklace, and he had it. They were asking him about her buying it at a pawn shop, and he picks it up. He's looking at it. He's like, yeah, that's the necklace, blah, blah, blah. And he looks, he said, well, look here. There's a nick in it. There's 2 nicks in this necklace. It's got marked. It does have 2 nicks in it, right? And they're saying that's because the knife, it went across the knife. That's where you get that hesitation. See, her slit on her neck comes down, and then it hesitates. And they're saying, well, that necklace had to save her. But the necklace they proved that the necklace that she bought it wasn't a brand new necklace. It was a used necklace that she bought at the pawn shop. So how do we know that Nick hadn't been there? And then a lot of people say they want Darlie to have a new trial, and I don't understand why. Why? Because
I thought that there was evidence that there could have been someone else in the house, because I've been watching these documentaries. I've not really got to look at the real facts like you're telling me.
At this point, right now, there's no evidence of anyone else being inside that house except for Darren and Darla. What she has to prove is actual innocence. So that means she has to prove that there was someone in that house with a name who didn't need to be there. It can't be, the house was only 3 years old. It can't be some construction worker that was there doing the lumber. It's got to be this guy, this name. And if she shows that there was an intruder, they will let her out. All she got to do, she's had 22 years, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of donations to help her, and it all still points to her. Here, a couple years ago, I believe her mother had all the DNA results that are going to come up. It's all sealed to the public now. You can't even see that.
Her fiance says that she's going to be released in 1 to 3 years.
Well, I've heard that. All right, look, if he knew that she was going to be released, that means he heard that from someone else. They don't make you wait and say, well, we've got this evidence to get you out right now, but we're going to wait 1 to 3 years. If you're going to be released because they have evidence, they're going to let you out.
Yeah, he did tell me that in a personal, private message that she would be free in 1 to 3 years, something like that. He said, yeah.
I've been hearing that since at least 2010.
You know, something that stuck out to me is he said something to me that I noticed that Darren said in an interview. And he said, to know Darlie is to love Darlie.
She's very charming. She is very charming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've never talked to her, but I used to write to her back and forth. And she's very charming.
She's very likable when you watch her in that documentary. You look at her and you're like, no, this woman couldn't have brutally murdered her 2 children. She's just a sweet Southern speaking woman. She sounds Southern to me sometimes.
She was a typical person. Yeah. I mean, she wasn't, they tried to make her look like Mother of the Year, PTA. They said she was a PTA mother, but no one from the school came to testify.
Okay. And I've also heard that her children ran around the neighborhood wild, no supervision. Is that true?
Well, there was some construction going on, and they were building that neighborhood up. And the boys that got into some of that stuff, and the construction workers brought her home. But I don't think it was anything outside of typical. Your kids, you let them outside to play. They're going. If there's construction, they're going to go. I mean, that's what kids do. I don't think she sucked as a mother. I don't think she was that bad as a mother. People, some of our non-supporters try to make her look like she was just this hateful. I think she was just a normal mom who was getting stressed out. Her husband's $500,000 a year business is now failing. He's having to take her car to work because his car was broke, so she can't go shop till you drop. That was her nickname, shop till you drop, Darlie. So she's stuck at home. And she doesn't want to deal with the housework and others. They hired maids. They hired nannies. She didn't want anything to do with the housewife thing. Let's put it that way. She didn't want to be a housewife.
She didn't want to be a housewife. She just, wanted all these high-end things and live the high life and have everybody else kind of do work for her, like housework and stuff. That's the way I take it.
Well,
like she's not the type of girl that would want to do housework or woman, I would think.
I don't think she ever had to. I think Darren spoiled her rotten.
Right.
Which is fine. It's fine and dandy.
That's fine and dandy if you want to spoil someone. If
you can afford it.
Right.
But see, then once she realized that he couldn't afford to do this stuff and he's stuck in the house, I think she wanted to leave him, but she was afraid to leave him because she would lose her kids. And I think somewhere in the back of her mind is like, hell with it. I'm just going to take all 3 of us out of this situation. She couldn't get to Drake. People say, well, why didn't she go upstairs and kill Drake too? Because Darren would have caught her.
Right, right. I've actually said that too. Like, why was the baby spared? But it's really common sense if you think about it, because he was with Darren.
Yeah. And there was
I feel so bad. I feel so bad for Drake. I saw him in that documentary. He's had leukemia. Bless his little heart.
He loves his mom. He loves his mom no matter what. And that's it's got to be tough for him.
Yeah.
She never, another thing that's kind of odd is she never once asked about Drake that night. She never said, Wouldn't your instinct be, all right, two of my kids are gone. Oh my God, what about my baby upstairs? She didn't go up there. She didn't even ask about him. You know why she didn't ask about him? Because she knew there wasn't nothing wrong with him.
And Darren also said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said it wasn't till a little while later that he actually went back up to check on the baby.
Well, yeah, because Darren was downstairs trying to save those boys, and
Right.
you got people out there trying to make it look like he did this. He didn't do it. He didn't kill his babies, but I believe he covered for Darlie. I believe he covered. I believe he's not the smartest, even though he's doing so much better now. You know, as far as he owns Netcom Communications in Lubbock. They do security systems for houses and businesses. He's got with a girl named Cindy Black, who he dated before he was with Darlie. They built this $1 million ranch in Lubbock. I mean, he's successful now. And before he was successful, and she would just spending it. And I'm sure it was frustrating for him. And she used to say, well, I'm going to leave you. And he would just do whatever she wanted. I believe she told him that night, I want a separation. And I believe before he walked up the stairs, he said, good, because when I come back downstairs, you're going to get one. I want you out of my house. I believe he finally told her that night, I want you out of my house. He got tired of being told, well, I'm going to divorce you. His mother told me personally that she wanted a divorce from him way before these murders. You can hear her say that. Her mother. Then you can hear her mother tell me that his mother tell me that she's a really light sleeper. Then I said, well, how come she didn't hear what was going on, right in front of her? She goes, oh, that's because she's a heavy sleeper. I said, you just told me 5 minutes ago she was a light sleeper. So what we got to do is, like, Darren Gross is a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm. He's super. Darren is great.
Yeah, but I think he goes a lot on what he's been told. There's been, and in the last 10 years, there's probably been about 5 Darren Grosses. Okay, they say that well, I'm here for Darlie. I'm going to be for Darlie. This guy might be the real deal, though. But it seems like every 2 or 3 years, there's a different guy sticking up for it. It was Dave Moff. Then there's Patrick King. I told Darren this the other night. I said, well, you're not the only Darlie boyfriend I spoke to. I mean, well, she can't be, she's behind. It's not like she's promiscuous. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
People latch on to her. And if I can understand a guy going to see her, and she's very charming. She's not ugly. She's kind of cute.
She is cute.
But I can see that, because just like females get attached to these bad boys, and they all prisoners, even my son gets girls writing him. Because because people are attached to that somehow. And I'm going to be able to ask Darren what it is. He's a nice guy. He wants to come talk to me. I'm not going to, and when he comes to talk to me, I'm not going to be like, well, this is why I'm not going to do that to him. I'm going to let him get out there.
Bryan, he says some really nice things about you.
Well, sure.
We started out in private.
Yeah, we started out on the wrong foot. But people hear this stuff about me like I'm just this nasty old Darlie non-supporter and I'll cuss you out. No, I state the facts, and then when you say, well, that's wrong and you're an idiot, or you're a fat slob behind a computer, of course I'm going to cuss you out for that. When her mother,
crap, you correct me all the time when I get misinformations in my comments. I appreciate it because I don't take offense to that.
No, that's why I do it. I mean, I want the facts to be out there, But when I was just going to leave it completely alone when I left support, I was just going to leave it alone, and I was to stay off the groups about it. But when her mother publicly told me that 85J, that print that's on the glass table, she said, that's Bryan STJohn's print. I want to compare that print to his because I believe he did this. She accused me publicly of killing these kids.
Wow. I would have been so upset.
I said, let me tell you something now. You have just created a freaking monster, because I'm going to get the facts on this case, and I'm going to show you not only did I not do it, that Darren didn't do it, and that the person that did do it is sitting in jail. And I've been on a mission ever since then. She should have never said that to me. Never.
This is what one of the guys that's like I don't know if he was a prosecutor, but he had something to do with the case. He said, every 5 years, they come up with some new evidence they say is going to exonerate her, but you never see it.
That's Greg Davis. Greg Davis was the prosecutor in that case, and he made that statement about every 5 years that he said they could say whatever they want. He said, but I'm bound by law. I can't make up things. I have to do it this way. That's what he meant. They tried to. Greg Davis was a very successful prosecutor. He had 22 death row cases, and he got convictions in all of them. And they tried to say that he went after her because she was pretty, because she had big boobs, because she was rich. No, he went after her because he thought that she killed them kids.
To be honest, they do paint Greg Davis as someone that talks about her looks a lot. If you watch several different documentaries, he talks about her looks. I don't know if he has a problem with her being pretty, or if he is just trying to say like
Well,
she's a temptress or something, and she's. I don't get that.
He's trying to show her character, that her character is self-centered.
Okay.
And that's what he's trying to say. She has to have the finest clothes. She has to have the finest watches. She got. I'll tell you something about those boobs. She got those boobs because Darren didn't want another child, and she was pregnant. And the agreement was, if you abort that child, you'll get these boobs. That's how she got those boobs. You can read that in Hush Little Babies. It's Don Davis's book. That's how she got those boobs. So when she came up pregnant with Drake, she was scared to death that Darren was going to be upset about it. He wanted 2 kids. But that's the truth about those boobs. And Greg Davis just tries to, he tried to show her character was self-centered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the way they do these documentaries, and then they go back in and do the editing and all that, and they kind of make him look like, to me it did at least, like he had a problem with her looks, but I wasn't understanding why he was saying that. He was trying to, I guess, I just explain her character, I guess, or how she is.
Well, it's a man wouldn't get that. If it was a man that was on trial for killing his kids, he wouldn't get, well, she looks like this and she likes, a man wouldn't get that. But the prosecutor's job is to paint a picture. He didn't paint a fake picture of her. She did like to shop. She did like to wear the best clothes. She did like the drapes in their house cost $12,000 fucking dollars. She liked that. Sorry about my language, but I'm just saying that she liked to have the best of the best, and there's proof of that. So what Greg Davis didn't make up any lies about Darlie. None, not one. Yeah. If someone killed my kids and they had that person in court, I damn sure would want Greg Davis to prosecute that sumbitch. I really would.
Yeah.
Now, the Darlie supporters have Greg Davis's actual brother, Bruce, on their side. They're saying that he will say anything and do anything to win the case, and his brother Bruce is on Darlie's side.
Well, they must have had some kind of falling out then, him and his brother.
Their father, Lyle, was a really rich guy. He owned an electric company there. And when he passed away, he left everything to Greg and didn't leave nothing to Bruce. So, of course, Bruce Davis is on their side. He says his brother's this and that and blah, blah, blah.
And then Darlie supporters say that her, by the documentary I watched, and I did take notes, that basically her first attorney didn't represent her too well. There were things that he could have did about it, certain evidence and things. And
well, at first she had the public defender, Doug Mosty. I want to say Parks. She had the public, but she had about 7 different attorneys at first. They were all working on her case, and they got rid of the public defender's office and hired Mad Dog Doug Mulder.
Yeah, Mulder. Yeah, I was going to go get my notebook and get his name, but you got it, Mulder.
They paid $200,000 for him. Mulder used to have, before he was a defense attorney, he was a prosecutor. So he had Greg Davis's job at one time. So he knew it both ways. He was an excellent attorney. And you can even hear Darren say, we got the best attorney. He's the best.
Yep, that's what he said.
And he told them, he said, well, I think I can draw reasonable doubt for her and maybe get an acquittal, but I have to implicate Darren. I have to say Darren could have done this too. And the family didn't want him to implicate Darren. For some odd reason, they did not want him.
I will tell you what I think. If Darren covered up for her, he's as guilty as she is.
I believe
those were his children. If my husband murdered my children and I knew it, I damn sure wouldn't cover for his ass. His ass would be going to the death penalty or whatever they give you for it here.
He would be charged the same as her.
Yeah, that's not right if he did cover for her.
They have the law of parties there in Texas, so he would have got it too. And see, he can never go back. He can never go back and say, okay, I lied. I saw this and that. Because if he does that, there's no statute of limitations on murder, and they would arrest him immediately. So he's stuck with what he did in 96. He can't talk his way out of it. And Darlie can't go back and say, well, you know what? Darren helped me cover it up, blah, blah, blah. Let's bring him in here too. Because that puts her on the gurney. So they're at this stalemate with each other. He hasn't went to see her since at least 2011. And before that, he would go see her and he was still, all lovey-dovey with her and in love with her, but Darlie didn't want any more of that. She didn't want to be married to him in the first place. You can hear his mother say that.
So she claims she wanted to let Darren, I've heard, move on with his life. She was on death row. I've heard that. Then I've also heard she didn't want nothing else to do with him when she found out that he lied about wanting the house robbed. He was planning that behind her back.
Well, see, before the DNA test in 2015, they did a round of DNA test, and it all pointed back at Darlie. So all of us as non-supporters say, well, she's really got nothing left. There's nothing she can do now. And Pam and I said, nope. Now what they're going to do is try and make it look like Darren did it. They're going to try and make it lightweight, seem like Darren had something to do with it. So she can get this written. Yeah. And then
can you explain to us what this last appeal is?
Well, I know that they want to get that print run, but the defense has every opportunity to run that as the state does. They're raising money for her all the time. They want to test a few different items. I'm not exactly sure. I think they want to do some more testing on the nightshirt. I think they want to do some more testing on the knife. But the thing with the knife is, Mosty, her attorney, when he was showing that knife to the jury at one point, he actually cut himself with it. So now the state's saying, okay, that's contaminated. So they may not. The knife was only tested at 4 points back in 96. That's why they say you never see any of Devin's blood on it, right? Well, now they can test it at 8 points and take it completely apart and look down in there and see. But they're saying that Devin's blood should have been on that knife. Well, if you got Devin's blood on the knife and you plunge that knife all the way into someone else's body, the blood that was already on there is now in the body.
Right.
Okay. Now, just because his blood isn't on there doesn't mean that knife wasn't used on him. And just because we don't see it with 4 points doesn't mean we won't see it when they do 8 points. And that's going to go bad.
So I heard when the boys were at the medical examiner that the boys' stab wounds looked different. Like a different knife could have been used because they said on one of the boys, they sewed the wounds up and, it closed up. But on the other boy, when they tried to sew up his wounds, it wouldn't pull tight. There was still like a gap. They were trying to stitch it up, I guess.
Well, you had a different method of attack. Like I said, Darlie's knife wounds were slices, and she had one little poke in here. But if somebody's vigorously going at, and let's say these kids are fighting back, because I think they were fighting back, it's going to make the wounds different. It's going to make the wounds bigger. Now, I haven't heard anything about them trying to sew it up and it wouldn't sew up. I don't know where that came from. But I know that
I will find out where I heard that at. I've watched so so many things. I will find out. It could have been in my comment section. I'm not sure. It's just hearsay.
Well, we know that the method of attack was different, and you got to look at the serrated knife that was in their block that they found that had fibers stuck to it from the screen. If an intruder brought another knife, why would there be screen fibers on that block? You got to think about it like this. That means that somebody had to get in the house, get that knife, go back outside, cut the screen, and then come back in the house and put the knife back.
So Darlie's mom says on this one interview, it was a long bread knife with a rounded tip. That's exactly what she says. And she's like, you know, with a whole block of knives there, why would you choose the bread knife? And, you know, she made it out like maybe the bread knife couldn't have cut the screen. But I got to thinking about that. Yeah, it could. With enough force, you could push it through there, then pull down, right?
It's actually easier to cut it with because it'll hook into it, and we've done it. And you'll have a regular knife, a regular chef's knife. If you cut it, it's not going to leave any bits, any fibers. With the serrated knife, when you cut it, it actually rips, and it's going to leave fibers on the serrated knife, which leads me to believe that they had it right in the first place. That knife that they found in the block was the one that was used to cut the screen. Which that would take the intruder completely out. Because why break in and then take a knife and then go cut the screen? Why? They found him stuck to the knife. It wasn't just in the block, it was stuck to the knife. Now, if you got an old screen somewhere and you got a serrated knife, do it. And you'll see what I'm saying. It'll rip it, and all the fibers will be stuck to the side of the knife. And then try it with a regular chef's knife, and it doesn't do that. It cuts it.
Yeah.
And we've done this years ago to prove that.
I don't understand why this woman, they tried to offer her a plea deal of just life, and she turned it down.
No, they didn't.
Wait, let's see. The judge, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the judge wouldn't let her do it.
The state never offered her a deal for life. Never. And I've got a video of the prosecutor, Toby Shook, telling me that. She was already in jail. She was already in prison for 10 years when this letter from Richard Burr, which is her defense attorney, claims that he can get her this deal if she would just say she did it. Well, she was already convicted. The state has no reason to come back and say, you know what? You've been in there 10 years. You just say you did it and we'll give you life. They had no reason to do that. They've already got their conviction. Why would they make a deal?
I thought that the reason was because of the court reporter in the transcripts, because all that shady stuff come out about her. That's what her lawyer was saying. It
was way after the deal that they allege happened was way after. It was 10 years into her sentence. And what it was her attorney was going to try to go to the state and say, look, maybe I can get her to admit she did this if you just give her a life sentence. It wasn't the state saying, hey, we messed up. If you just admit you did it, we'll give you a life sentence. The state never offered her that deal. We talked to the DA ourselves. The state never offered her that deal. That was another lie that was told on that show. She never got the deal. Never offered it to her.
Yeah. So what do you think her motive was? Just she wanted rid of them?
I think that she wanted to teach Darren a lesson. I think she intended to kill herself and the kids because he was failing. And let's just imagine this. Think about it like this. If Darlie would have successfully killed herself and been found there on the floor dead, would Darren be in prison right now?
Maybe they could have got prints off the knife that she killed herself with,
Well, they would have found out it was that her wound was self-inflicted. That's what they would have found out. But I think she just wanted to get back at Dylan. It's called revenge, spousal, filicide. She was frustrated with Darren. She didn't want Cyrilda to get the kids if she left. She wanted her kids. So she figured she'd just take them all. That's just an opinion, though.
Do you think she had postpartum depression?
I think she did, yeah.
I do too. A lot of people say that the media, it's like a media frenzy because it was 2 years after Susan Smith. So, and Susan Smith around her 2 boys, and here there's 2 boys here in Texas murdered. And so they naturally blamed the mother because it was 2 years, after Susan Smith killed her kids.
Well,
That's what.
the case is nothing like Susan Smith. Susan Smith, her motive was to get with a guy that didn't want kids. And the reason that her case is nothing like Susan Smith's to me is 9 days later, Susan Smith couldn't live with herself, and she walked in and confessed. She confessed.
Yeah.
She didn't have to confess. She couldn't live with herself. That's why Darlie and Susan Smith are not the same.
Yeah. That was just on that documentary that I was watching.
Well, her mother too.
They brought up Susan Smith was just 2 years prior to these murders. But another thing, Bryan, that sticks out to me, if an intruder came in and brutally murdered 2 children and tried to kill a woman, most of the time they'll go kill again, right?
Usually, yeah. Usually, if they've got that much, it would be a serial killer. You got to think about this too. They say that this intruder probably followed Darlie around and scoped out the house and was watching her for days on end. Well, about 8:30 that night, Darren left with her sister Dana, who had been staying there for about 2 weeks. He left to take Dana home and was gone for about 40 minutes. If somebody's stalking that house, they now know that the man is gone.
Right.
That would have been the best time to hit. And you got to think about this too. Dana had stayed there for 2 weeks. She was never asked to testify. If you see her on the Lisa Gibbons show, Lisa asked Dana, she said, "What was your sister's state of mind that night?" And Dana put her head down and started crying. She couldn't answer the question. And then they come back to another scene, and Dana ain't on that stage anymore. The reason that Dana, to me, I think the reason Dana wasn't asked to testify is because Dana knows they've been arguing for 2 weeks. She can't sit on the stand and lie. They didn't want her to get charged. She was 16 years old, I believe, maybe a little bit younger. They didn't want her to get up there and lie. Dana had been there for 2 weeks. Dana said that she wanted to go home to be with her boyfriend. But then Darlie comes back and says, "I asked Dana to leave because I wasn't feeling well that night." That's the only time that Darlie says she wasn't feeling well that night, is when she wanted Dana to go back home. And I think that it took longer for Darren to get back from dropping his sister off because they thought that there was something going on with them too. So when Darren got back 40 minutes later from a 15-minute drive, that started the argument.
And Dana is Darlie's sister, correct?
Her little sister, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
They've all, Dana. Her name is Dana Gist now, Gist. But I believe that Darlie's dad is. I think Dennis Stahl is Danelle and Dana's dad. I believe, and Darlie's dad, his name is Larry Peck. He doesn't get into any of this. They got different dads. So you got Darlie Key. She was Darlie Malk, Darlie Stahl, Darlie Peck, and Darlie Key. So she's on her 4th marriage.
Good Lord.
Yeah. The thing that's funny about the donation part of it all is Rob Key, the one that she's married to now, collects Corvettes. He was the president of the Texas Corvette Club for a while. But she still is asking you for money because she wants to free her daughter while she's driving around a classic Corvette. Yeah, she hates I say this stuff about her, but these are facts. If you can drive,
I often wonder if she has ever thought that her daughter is guilty. I often wonder if she's thought that in her own mind.
Well, she said that it never once crossed her mind that she said she never wavered on it. But there's an interview where she says, "I asked Darlie, is there anything you need to tell me?" I mean, so that thought did cross her mind, or she wouldn't ask her daughter that question. And she said, "No, Mom, I didn't hurt my kids." If you listen to Darlie Key, she's kind of contradicting. But you know what? I didn't used to understand why she's the way she is until this happened to my son.
Right.
Okay. So now I know how she feels. But the difference between me and her is I know my son's guilty, and I'm not going to sit out here and pretend he ain't. But he's not looking at a death sentence. So I kind of understand they took that off the table, but now I understand how she might feel, because at first, before my son went to court and they proved him guilty, I was Darlie Key. I didn't want to hear nothing. He was innocent. I don't care. Blah blah blah. But when I saw all the documents, I read all the paperwork for myself. I talked to the investigators, talked to the DA myself, and they showed the trial. I knew he was guilty, so I'm not going to pretend like he's not. That's the difference between me and her.
Right. We can't help what others do, and you can't help what your children do. You try to raise them the best you can, and if they do something like that, it's not your fault. Just know that, Bryan. Not everybody judges you by that.
Well, when this happened with my boy, these Darlie supporters ate it up. I mean, and I tell you, they had a little chat the day that this happened. It was two years ago. They had a little secret chat. How are we going to get Bryan back? We can do this and blah, blah, blah. And the lady that runs the Free Darlie that you were talking about told me all about that chat. She said they're going to set up a group, and they're going to use this baby's death to pick at you. And they've been doing it for 2 years.
She seems nice, that lady that runs that channel.
I tell you what, Stephanie is a sweet person. She really is. If I don't talk to her about Darlie, we can talk about everything else. She's the most friendly. I'd love to hang out with her. But when we get on Darlie, that's it.
Yeah.
So now I've accepted it. I'm like, okay, she don't want to hear it. She doesn't want to debate it. She's not going to debate it. She realizes she could be wrong, but she loves Darlie, and she's going to be there for Darlie. And I don't care if Darlie did it or didn't do it. People that are on death row deserve at least one person like that, because she's looking at losing her life. And that's what I was telling Darren the other night. Darren Gross. I was like, look, even if they had video of her doing this crime, I would still think that she deserves humanity. She needs at least one person. I don't hate Darlie supporters. I hate Darlie supporters that insult me.
I don't know if she's guilty or innocent. I am forming my own opinion in my head, but my heart did go out to her mom in that documentary when they asked her if she was prepared for Darlie to be executed. Yeah, and she said, no, I can never be prepared for that. And tears came up in her eyes. And I felt for her as a mother.
Well, I'm going to say this about Darlie Key, because I don't want to trash her. But when this happened with my son, I have thousands of Facebook followers, thousands of non-supporters, people on YouTube. The first one to call me and tell me, Bryan, if you need to talk, I'm sorry this happened to you, I'll help you through it, was Darlie Key. She was the first one to call me.
Wow.
She said, use my number. The very first one. Now,
and I think that says a little bit about her character, that she felt for you. I think she felt for you.
Okay.
In a way.
Okay. I was really impressed that she was the first one to reach out to me. So I decided to use her number to help me through it, and she never responded.
Wow. Some people just say things, Bryan, just to be hearing them say things, act like they're nice, and then they don't, never follow up.
Now that I look at it, since she was the first one to hit me with it, that's her way of saying, ha, 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 how's it feel?
Oh, really?
Because I used her number. I was texting her left and right, and I had talked to her on the phone many times before that, even as a non-supporter. Never answered me.
Oh, that makes sense. You put it like that,
And, I was out there on Facebook like, you know what, this happened to me and blah, blah, blah. And the only one that really came to me first, even out of the thousands of followers I had, was Darlie Key. So
wow.
She kind of reveled in it herself. I don't hate Darlie Key. They think I do, but if I put out it, but you accuse somebody of killing 2 kids and you think they're not going to be mad at you and use every little thing that you do wrong to get back at you, you're wrong.
Right.
Said, I want your friend.
But the Darlie supporters are going to have to understand that there's just so much evidence that points to her that, there's going to be people that think that she's guilty, Then there's going to be people that think she's innocent. Then there's going to be people like me that don't know and think maybe there should be a new trial. But I'm going to refrain from saying that for a little bit because I don't know the facts. Right? I don't know the facts.
If you think she deserves a new trial, you'd have to think about why would she deserve a new trial? Because everybody that's on death row didn't do it. You only have a few that say, yeah, I did do it. So if we decided that everybody that gets convicted, just because they say they didn't do it, they get a new trial, our criminal justice system is going to go, when we convict you and we're sure that we got you convicted, if you can't prove your way out of it, you don't deserve nothing.
Well, one of the reasons that I thought she may need a new trial was like the fingerprints they couldn't match and the bruising on her arm. I actually thought that it could have been Darren that set her up to make it look like she murdered those kids. Right. And I was just judging my information off these documentaries, but now I'm getting real evidence and reading through it,
Well, see, if you have an unidentifiable print that's too smudged, that's not grounds for a new trial. I mean, because they can't prove whose it is.
Well, someone had told me that it was smeared in blood.
It is in blood. It is in blood. The fingerprint is in blood. Okay, so then it can't be an intruder's print because the intruder had a sock on, right?
Oh, right, Brian. See, that's why I wanted to talk to you.
So they say that that's the intruder's print in blood, right? Then that means who had the sock on. That kills it completely. Think about it.
Right. See, I'm going to have to go back through her statement. I have never actually took the time to sit down and read like her written statement. I've only went by like these documentaries and things.
I've took the time to read
everything. I'm missing info,
I even sneak on the supporter sites and I look at what they're talking about. I've looked at everything. If there's something to read about Darlie that I haven't read it, I'll go read it. And I give them the benefit of the doubt if it's there. Because there are some there. Well, there's in the 911 call, it sounds like Darren in the background saying, "Oh my God, Blake came in here." All right. And some supporter put that up. And I said, no, I want to hear this for myself. So I get to looking at it and I'm using Audacity and I'm slowing it down. And it does sound like Darren said, "Oh my God, Blake came in here." And they had a criminal on that street named Blake. Right. And I was honest about it. I said, well, this is what it sounds like to me. And some of my non-supporter friends are like, "Brian, come on. You don't hear that." Yeah, I do hear that. That doesn't mean he said it. It means it sounds like he said it.
Well, okay, on Stephanie's channel, she has a video and she's going through the 911. And she says that the part where Darlie says that she was fighting is really, she said she was frightened, like scared, frightened.
Darlie said, "I was frightening." She changed it to, "I was frightening." She only changed her statement after at first she said she was trying to fight him off. But the profilers came in here and said, well, there's no damage in here. It doesn't look like a fight. It doesn't look like a fight at all. So she changed it to, "Oh, no, I said I was frightening. I was frightening." She used the word frightening. Okay. Mm-hmm. Frightening means, that's not even a word. Not in that context. Oh, right. Somebody was stabbing my kids and I was frightening. No, she should have said I was frightened. But frightening and fighting sound. She changed her statement. See, that's one of the statements one of the 16 times she changed her statements was that word. She took that out because they knew that all they had in that living room was a desktop, glass top table flipped over. That's it. There's no fighting a guy that's trying to kill you. And then she tried to say that the guy was on top of her, but she couldn't really see his face.
And her panties were missing. Like, did she say he tried to rape her or what?
She had on a Victoria's Secret nightgown, right? They say her panties were missing. But the only ones that say that are Darren and Darlie. Do we know she had any on? I mean, did she? I mean, you got a silk, you're a female. You got a silk Victoria's nightgown on. I know my wife, when she wears those long nightgowns, she might not have anything under that. You want to, just to be comfortable to go to bed. Who says her panties were missing? Who could prove what panties she put on that night? Darren and Darlie say that. There was no
She said
cops.
she found pressure in her private area.
Well, if there was any pressure, that means something penetrated it, right?
Well, let me just tell you a little story about me. We had a house guest years ago, me and my ex-husband, and I woke up one night. I had took a Xanax, and I went fast asleep, and I woke up, and my husband was at the time he was asleep on the couch, and that guy had put his hands down in my pants, and I immediately woke up
Well,
before he even got to too far down.
well, that's your hoo-ha. If somebody's touching that and you're asleep, you're gonna wake up. Same for a guy. You know, if a guy's sleeping there and somebody touch, you're gonna wake up because you didn't authorize that. You're gonna wake up immediately.
That's what I'm saying. How did that should have woke her up immediately. Hell, I took a Xanax and I still woke up immediately.
Well, you got to also think of this. She was down on that couch because she had a hard time sleeping because of a baby moving in her crib. But a guy could crawl up on top of her and do something that causes pressure down there, and she didn't wake up. Sorry, I'm not buying it.
I don't buy that either.
If he wanted to rape her, let's say he really wanted that. That's the only reason he was in there was to rape her. He'd see those two kids there. Right, and then he'd slip on over to that couch. And he'd put his hands over his mouth or her mouth and let him know he's got a weapon. He'd say, "You're going to do whatever I tell you. I'm going to hurt them kids," and she's going to do whatever, and then he's going to leave. And that's what would have happened if it was a rapist.
Yep. Yeah, I know that would have happened because that's exactly what happened to my friend. He told her if she screamed that he would kill the two girls, and she didn't say a word.
Yeah,
she just let him do whatever and leave.
Yeah,
they never did find him.
The profiler Brantley said that if it was a rapist or a sexual assault, that the kids would have been used as leverage. He wouldn't have took out his only leverage. Because look, all right, he's killed the kids, and now he's going to go over and rape her, right? Well, she looks over and sees that her kids are killed while he's trying to rape her. She's not worried. She's not going to submit. She's going to start screaming. That ruins it. If it was a thief, all that stuff that was sitting on the counter would have went out the door with him.
The thief would have seen the jewelry as soon as they entered.
That would have been the first thing they saw. It was sitting right there.
I mean,
and you know that when the house was up for sale back in 2005. We were down there anyway. We were down in Texas anyway to do the John Kennedy thing. And I told my wife, I said, we're going to slip over Rowlett. I was a supporter at the time. I said, we're going to slip over Rowlett. It's about 20 miles away, maybe. And I want to see the house. She didn't want to go in with me. But it was for sale. We got to walk through the house because it was for sale. We set it up. You know, there was another couple there. We set it up. And I got to go inside the house. And, of course, they mentioned that the stuff happened there. But I got to stand right in that room.
God.
And I know that from the utility room, the first thing that he would have saw as he came out of that garage, there is even, it's right at the end of that counter was all that stuff. It was right there. There's no reason for him not to take it. And see, that's one of the reasons why Darlie Key said, you could have been there. You could have done it. You went back to the house. I have Texas roots. I lived in Houston for the longest time. And I want your fingerprint because I left support. I want your fingerprint to compare to 85.
You know how many people have visited that house? My friend that's the forensic pathologist, I don't think she went in, but she was in that area and she went by and she took pictures. She took pictures of the alleyway and everything. And she actually sent them to me last night in email. So, I mean, that's not strange. Like a famous case, it's famous here in America, happened there. So, of course, people are going to go there.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get to go inside because it was up for a showing. But after the realtor left, we all left. I went back, and one of the theories that they had about the sock was that when the intruder came out, he had his car. They're saying that he had his car parked up against that fence there in the back alley, and they said that he was trying to get back to his car, and he was reaching for his keys, so he took that sock off his hand and put it on top of his car to get his keys. Right, and then he took off. And that's how the sock fell. That's how they say the sock fell over there. I did that 3 different times. My wife was sitting in the car. I come out, I put a sock on top of the car, and I took off real quick. And 2 out of the 3 times, it fell almost exactly where they found that sock at on the curb. And I'm like, wow. And people were like, why would you tell that story? It makes it look good for supporters. Because it's the truth. It really did. 2 out of 3 times. One time it fell right off, but the other 2 times it fell almost exactly within 4 feet, both times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. But I think that she ran that sock out and tried to throw it in the gutter or in that trash bin and just missed.
Because she was in a hurry.
Yeah, no,
and then she came back in and cut her own throat, right?
Yeah, the prosecution can't explain the sock, neither can the defense. We can't explain the sock, but one thing that's telling about it is they found her cells inside the sock, her skin cells inside the sock. There's no reason for her skin cells to be inside that sock. It should be an intruder skin cells inside that sock. And people say, well, didn't she do laundry? Maybe she could have just been folding them socks up. Wrong, because Helena, the person that took care of the housekeepers, testified that she did the laundry.
Yeah, so, see, I said that too. You know, what if she did the laundry? Because, you know, I have my hands inside his socks all the time, you know, when they're inside out or whatever. But now that you see, I didn't know anything about a maid and things. See, this is why I've been wanting to talk to you.
Well, the maid,
you know it all.
The maid, her name was Helena. She was Halina. She was Beja's mother. Beja was the one. If you watch the silly string video and you see the woman holding up Drake's arms, that's Beja. Beja was their nanny, housekeeper, and she put her mom to work with them. But they only, you know. But I did an interview with Beja too, and Beja flat told me that night of the murders, she came over there, and that Darren and Darlie were arguing in the kitchen. She said Darlie was literally sharpening her knives to make dinner. But she said when she came in, Darlie was sharpening her knives and arguing with Darren. So she went out back, and she said that Damon was out back playing with the stick, just walking around playing with the stick. And she said Damon came up to her and said, Beja, I want to come spend the night with you tonight. And she leaned down and talked to Damon. And she said, well, why would you want to come spend the night with me tonight? You know, your mommy's here and her. And he goes, because mommy's being mean to me. That was the night of the murders, according to Beja. Now, granted, she never said this on the stand. And I'm like, well, how come you didn't say any of this stuff on the stand? She said, well, darling, they were my friends, and I didn't really want to do this, but I told the prosecutor I had to answer any question you asked me. And they didn't ask it. She could have sealed it.
You know, regardless if you're someone's friend or not, if a little kid tells you something like that, and then that night they're murdered, or whatever night it was they were murdered, something, you know, would tell me, like, I'm going to tell the cops this because that little, you know, he was afraid. He wanted to come spend the night with me.
Well, yeah, she should have. She may have, in hindsight, she realizes she should have. But a lot of times kids will say that your mom is being mean just because she made you go sit down or something like that, or stop playing rough. There was a little boy that was supposed to spend the night there that night. His name was Jonathan. And they told him, fortunately, they told him no, that he couldn't spend the night there.
Wasn't there another kid that had just spent the night there a couple nights before?
Jonathan. They got in trouble for, all the boys got in trouble for messing up the spa. They were out in the steam house. They made a big mess in there. So that Jonathan asked, could he spend the night that night again later? And they said, no, they wouldn't let him spend the night. And he did an interview. I talked to a friend of his. I also talked to, she doesn't want me to say anything, but the daughter that grew up there, her name's Peyton Lamb. And I've talked to her several times about what it's like to be in that house, but she doesn't want me to.
Right.
I talked to a lot of people. They don't want me to put it out. Like David Neighbors, the guy that did the photography there. He's a lieutenant, and he would rather me not put anything out. Some of the other detectives, like James Cron, I talked to him. He'd rather me not put anything out. A lot of them can't say anything because the case is under appeal. Like James Cron promised me. Cron's the older guy that came in there after 20 minutes or so and said, you know what? This is an inside job.
Right.
He tells me that as soon as all the appeals are over, if he's still alive, he's got to be 90 years old, that he'll tell me everything he knows about the case. I do know one thing. They say he was there They said after like 30 minutes, he decided that Darlie did it. That's wrong because Darren was the first suspect. And I know that James Crom was in that house that day for 9 hours. That's something that they don't put out there a lot.
Wow.
But he come in and he said he got to looking around and he had already done 4,000 cases with bodies. James Cron started out as a turnkey in the Dallas County Jail. He's one of the people that walked Lee Harvey Oswald around. So he's been in this for the longest time. And he knew right off the bat that it was he said it was an inside job. He never said that Darlie's the one that did it. Not right off the bat. That's another misconception that you'll hear.
Right. But the officers that responded there, I think I heard that they were suspicious of her not too long after they arrived there. You know, it must have been just pretty obvious to them that it was staged.
Well, Waddell was kind of suspicious of her because he says that he asked her 3 times to help and she wouldn't. And you don't hear none of this on the 911 call. I'll grant that. But I think by the time you can hear anything on the 911 calls, he's telling her just sit down. Because, you know, he thinks that there's an intruder still in there. He comes in gun drawn, and she's like, no, he's out in the garage. So if he can't get her to help the kids, he needs to keep her down where this if people also say, why didn't Waddell start helping them kids? Right? He's the only officer there. Why didn't he get down and start helping them kids? Well, Darlie just told her that there was some man in there. So let's say he's down helping the kids and that intruder jumps out and kills Darlie. Whose fault is it? It's Waddell. So his job is to secure the scene. And then people say, somebody said something about, well, why didn't the 911 operator start giving her medical stuff to do medically? You know, why didn't they? Somebody told me I was an idiot because I was fighting for the 911 operator where people were saying she should have been giving her medical advice, but she wasn't an emergency operator. She wasn't a medical operator. She was a dispatcher for the police department. They're not trained to give medical advice. But she quit her job after that. She did. She went home.
I thought she called 911, but she called the dispatch.
She called Rowlett Police Department dispatch. And then the dispatch back then turned it over to the emergency. So there's a difference between a police dispatcher and an emergency medical dispatcher. Doris Trammell was not an emergency medical dispatcher. Plus, she didn't know all the wounds. She just knew the boys were stabbed. She says what's she supposed to do? She can't tell her to apply pressure if she don't know where they've been stabbed at. She can't. You know, they were blaming everybody but Darlie. Everyone but Darlie.
Right. Darlie, when I was watching the documentary yesterday, and it showed the part where the silly string was going on, and the news camera people are asking Darlie and Darren questions, and she starts crying a little bit, and she's like, we tried to save our babies. We did everything to save our babies. And she goes, didn't we, Darren? Looks up at him. Go back and look at that part. I stopped that part and went back and played it. She looks over at him with the side of her eyes, which someone pointed out to me yesterday. She probably didn't turn her neck because it had that cut. But it's not that she didn't turn her neck to look at him and gave him the side eye. It's just the way that she says that. If you go back and watch that, there's something not right about that.
The one that the most people have of the silly string is just a few minutes a clip. I've got the entire silly string, and it gets worse as you go. These people do not look like two people, both of them, who just lost their kids.
I agree with you. I agree.
They're smiling and cheesing and laughing. They only show that little bit of a clip, but I've got all the old news clips are on my channel.
Now, a lot of my subscribers, when we talk about the silly string, they say that some of them say that that's not abnormal to them, what went on that day, because different people react different to traumas, and some people have the celebrations of life. It is a little strange to me, but I understand, everybody is different. What was strange to me is when she's talking to that reporter and she said, "Oh, we did everything to save our babies, didn't we, Darren?"
Yeah.
That shit is strange to me, and I would love to see the whole.
It's it's on there. It's on there. I'll send you a link. It's in my Darlie videos. But another thing that's strange about that whole clip is the news wanted to do a story with her. It was KXAS Channel 5 in Dallas. They wanted to do a story with her, and they contacted her. Hey, we want to get your story out there. You know, maybe you could tell who this intruder is and blah, 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 what people to look out for. They made KXAS in order to get that story from Darlie and Darren. They wanted them to fly her family in from Altoona, Pennsylvania, where she's from, and put them up the hotel so they could be out there. So right off the bat, they're looking for what can we get out of this. So they did. They paid for that interview, and not once did Darlie say, "This is what the man looked like. If you see this, call this number." You know, not once. Darren is even worse than Darlie. If you see the whole thing.
According to the defense doctors, one of the defense doctors, Darlie might have, I can't remember, I'll have to look at my notes, but something was wrong with her memory, like amnesia. Or...
well, it Lisa, let me see the name of, I'm trying to think of the name of that. Lisa Townsend, psycho doctor, said that she may have had traumatic amnesia, which is possible. She could have had traumatic amnesia, but she remembered simple things like, I chased him out. He dropped the knife. I picked it up, put it on the counter, and then I turned around and turned on the light. If you remember something as simple as turning on the light, you know, I mean, she had selective amnesia.
Right.
Because
and plus she changed her story. And I didn't really realize that until yesterday that she first said an intruder. The intruder woke her up somehow, and then she says that her little boy woke her up.
Yeah. Well, she didn't mention anything about wedding towels until they released the house back to them. And she took her friend Mercedes Adams that lived across the street over there to go back in the house, and she noticed that the sink was gone. They took the sink so they could find out that there was a wipe down at that sink. And most intruders don't clean up on the way out. So she found out the sink was gone, and that's when she came up with the story about the towels to explain why she was at the sink. But anyways, when she first goes in the house with her friend Mercedes Adams, this is in one of the books. She says they just stood there in the foyer, and Darlie looks around. She goes, "Oh my God, it's going to cost me a fortune to clean this fucking shit up." And Mercedes looked at her and said, "Is there anything that you need to tell me?" And she said, Darlie just ignored her and started going, "I'm going to get new drapes. I'm going to get new carpets." Blah, blah. And this is her friend, Mercedes Adams.
Wow.
That's in one of the books. And I've got videos of Mercedes Adams on my channel that shows where the defense was trying to get her to lie for Darlie. And that's on my, it's right there in video. I mean.
Well, I'm going to be watching your videos and pausing and taking notes. And I appreciate you coming on here and explaining a few things to me, because, I'm just going off documentaries and I want people to tell me the facts. If I get something wrong, you tell me. And I just want to say something. I pity anyone that tries to debate you. I just want to put that out there because you're a good debater.
Remember, if you saw the live I did where John Crimes and I went at it, did you see that?
Yep.
Now, I like John Crimes, but I know how to debate, and he wasn't in debate mode that night. He was mad because I made some fucked up videos of him that were funnier than hell. So I had that coming, but I couldn't debate him because he was trying to overtalk me. He was trying to be his eyes were this big. So I said, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way." And I said, "You'll never say that to my face." And that was it. And I let it go because I kind of had that coming because I made those funny videos of him, and he did not like them. But now me and him are cool. I said, "I'm glad you were able to get that off your chest." Now he understands because he's totally against Molly Golightly. And last night I was like, "We tried to tell you, John."
Hey, I heard something went on last night, but hey, YouTube's brutal, man. YouTube's brutal.
Oh, John absolutely hates her now. And
I'm gonna have to go watch that.
But he tried to, like I said, when he came on that live, he kept saying he didn't know who was there on the live. He got blindsided and I was there. But he knew I was there because he was listening. But he come on there and he was just still mad at me. So I knew I was going to be able to debate him. He said, "You act like a little girl. You're doing this." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's hard to do that when somebody's coming at you that way, like that. But you just have to understand that you're not going to be able to debate that person because they're pissed off right now." But in the end of it, though, is John sees that I'm right. He sees that I'm right now. So I didn't need to argue with him. Maybe I shouldn't have made those videos of him, but he was talking shit about me, and he had that coming too. So now we're cool. And I encourage people to look at John's videos.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. Yeah, he is.
He's very talented.
Talented guy. Very
I wish
talented.
he would cover Darlie Routier, and I'm going to ask him to do it at some point. He's got a lot going on right now because John will give his honest opinion on it. Mm-hmm. And he's got all that filmmaking background, so he'll be better at getting videos out than I am. I wanted Stephanie Harlow and Jay for Justice to do her too, but they haven't.
Yeah, I just reached out to Stephanie. If you was to speak to her, I wasn't wanting to debate her. I was just wanting her to explain some things to me about evidence. I told her that I was kind of neutral and kind of, a person just looking at it from fresh eyes, just diving into the case. Things didn't make sense to me. It looked like, maybe she could have been set up, but, she's not responded, and I totally understand that. That's fine.
Well, she's got 74,000 viewers, so I imagine that she gets a lot of
messages.
Yeah, and, Stephanie's very smart, but she can be very cocky, too. So I've talked to her a couple times.
I found her on Facebook Messenger. I don't have Facebook, but I still have the Messenger. Yeah. And that's where I sent her a private message because her comments are disabled.
She's disabled all her comments now?
You cannot comment on her videos. If there's a video on there you can comment on, I'm not aware of it. I didn't see it. Most of the videos I've watched, and I've watched about 4 or 5 videos of hers, and they're all, the comments are disabled. She probably gets a lot of hate for being a Darlie supporter. Just like you get a hate for being against, you thinking she's guilty. You get hate for that. She probably gets hate for being a supporter.
Well, I noticed a lot of the Darlie support videos, they won't let you comment under it because they know I'll see it. And if they put something out there that isn't right, I'm going to get under there and show you where the facts are. And most Darlie supporters, they don't want to argue it because it doesn't go well for them factually. Right. Even if you have a reasonable debate with no arguing, it doesn't go well for them. I want the Darlie supporters to show me that she's innocent, and if they show me she's innocent, and I'll be the first one to say, "Hey, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry." Show me something that I can't argue,
right?
Successfully, and I started to realize that when I was in support, and I did run across a non-supporter, I would say this and that, and they would just blow it out of the water with facts. I'm like, wow, I can't even argue this case.
Right. The forensics is just so overwhelming that, it does point to her. But yes, I did have questions and have been conflicted about it. But, the more I talk to you and the more I talk to the forensic pathologist, the more convinced I get of her guilt. But judging by the documentaries, you would think that the woman got a shitty deal, and maybe she's on death row and she's really innocent.
She could be, that's what I'm saying. She could be because the case.
Anything's possible.
Well, anything's possible. And if they would show me that somebody said, well, what if we show you that she's innocent? Are you going to apologize to us? I said, no, I'm not going to apologize to anybody out here. The only one I would apologize to was Darlie. And I'd be like, look, I'm sorry I believed in our justice system and they convinced me that you were guilty. But I wouldn't be sorry for anything I did. And people say, well, you've been really nasty to some of these supporters and their family. Well, they've been nasty to me too. I didn't say I'm going to leave support and then I'm going to turn around and cuss every supporter out. I've never went after a supporter for no reason. Now, if I see a supporter in there talking about that Bryan STJohn, he don't know his shit and blah, blah, I might message him and say, well, let's debate. Debate me then. Oh, well, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. And then that's what starts it. I don't
Yeah.
hate anybody. I don't hate anybody just because they think she's innocent, because I've been there and I know what it's like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, on my channel, you're free to think she's guilty or innocent or needs a new trial. We just like to share our opinions about the case and discuss it and agree to disagree. It's how
then,
we do it here, you
yeah.
know.
And when I'll probably get Darren to speak with me a little bit tonight, and I'll do a live with it. But I'm not going to debate him. I want to know what draws him to Darlie. I want to know what gets in. I like to talk to some females too that are in relationships with people that are in prison. I want to know what makes. I mean, I don't get that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him. I'm just saying I prefer the women that I care about in my life to be able to hug them, to be able to smooch with them, to be able. She's in a cage. You can't touch her. I
He
mean,
did tell me this. He said in a private message, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me. He
no,
said, well, I shouldn't have said fiance. He said, because I'm not going to propose to her until she is exonerated and out of prison. And then I'll get down on my knee and propose to her. That's what he told me. He seems like a really nice person.
he's a real
He
nice guy.
really does.
And I asked him, I said, if you knew she was guilty, would you still love her? He said, no, I wouldn't. I said, yes, you would. I said, yes, you would, because if you love somebody, you don't care if they're guilty or not.
The way he talks about her, to me, he seems like he is totally smitten.
She
You
is
know?
incredibly charming. She her even every letter that I've gotten from her, she draw little cute little pictures on it, and she makes it smell good, and she likes to talk about poetry and music, and she doesn't talk about the case in mail. She learned her
I
lesson.
don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
But she's very charming. I can see how guys would want something to do with her.
She is very charming. I mean, when I watch her, I see this sweet, beautiful, well-kept lady that
But
likes to look nice.
do we expect her to act like a person that killed two of her kids? Do we expect that?
Well, good point. Good point.
Yeah, I'm Darlie, and yeah, just give me a knife. Let me sharpen my knife up. She's not ever gonna do that. She never.
Of course, she's not going to act like a killer when they're doing a documentary on her, But if you don't know much about the case and you're like me and you just start watching those documentaries, you kind of fall for it. You kind of feel for her. What if this lady's innocent? She doesn't look like she is capable or sound like she's capable of these murders.
Ted Bundy was a good-looking guy too, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, one of my favorite. I'm like not my favorite serial killer, but that's the one I'm most interested in is Ted Bundy, and I've done a lot of research on him.
I think Darlie snapped, and I think that she was suffering from undiagnosed intermittent explosive disorder. I think she snapped that night, and I don't think that even though her two kids are gone, I don't think that one event should justify her whole life. I think she snapped. She didn't get the help that she needed, and now it's too late to take it back. I don't think that necessarily. I don't think necessarily the death penalty is going to putting her to death is going to solve anything. A lot of people would be happy to see it and be throwing a party, and I was one of the people once. But now I talked to some people with death row stuff, and the only way I'd be okay with them executing Darlie tomorrow is if it bring Devin and Damon back.
Right.
If they bring her back, they kill her 10 times over.
Yeah, I'm conflicted with the death penalty thing. Too, when it comes to children, sometimes, I'll think, well, maybe the death penalty for, those people that harm children and stuff. But then, I get to thinking, are we playing God? Are they playing God when they execute people? Does two wrongs make a right? I think things like that. I'm very conflicted about it. But the more I'll learn about it,
My son's
opinion.
case at first, for the first couple of days, it was a death penalty case, and they were going to put the death penalty on him. But they got to looking at the evidence, and they didn't feel like he intentionally did what he did. They even said that in closing. But he still got the life sentence, but they didn't feel like he woke up that morning and said, I'm just going to angrily kill this child. They think that he was too rough with him, and it caused his death. And even in closing, they said that in the closing arguments. So for somebody like him, even if he wasn't my son, who was a little too rough with a baby and it caused his death, I don't think that person would deserve a death penalty. I think that they would deserve a lot of time, if not life.
Right.
But somebody that, just gets up in the middle of the night and stabs their kids to death, the jury in her case, they decided that there were mitigating factors that if she were to be released after a life sentence, if she served so many years, that she would kill again. Those jurors all felt she would kill again. That didn't come from Greg Davis, the judge, no, but that came from 12 of her peers. That's why she got the death penalty.
They say, I've heard that if one of the juror members said that if they had saw the whole tape at the cemetery, the whole video, that they may not have voted guilty.
Charlie Sanford. If you look up online the affidavit of Charles Sanford, he says he never saw the pictures of her bruising. Right? He says he never saw those pictures. While the pictures were passed around, they went to the jury, and not only was the pictures passed around, they discussed every bit of the bruising at the trial. So if he didn't see the pictures and he didn't hear the testimony, then that's on him, because all the other ones saw it.
Right.
What happened with Charlie Sanford is he met Darlie Key. He met Darlie's mother, and they got together and they started talking. I did an interview with Charles Sanford. It's on my channel. He's not. He also said that they flew him out to New York, him and his wife, to do a spot on the show called The View about Darlie Routier. And The View has never done a show about Darlie Routier. Charlie's not. He's a nice guy, but he's kind of slow.
Right.
And his affidavit doesn't say anything about him not seeing those pictures. I think Darlie Key got in his ear and he tried to redact his guilty plea, and they wouldn't let him. But it wasn't based on he didn't see them pictures.
Yeah.
And Darlie Key's got the full memorial video. She's got the whole memorial video. She keeps telling us she's going to put it out there. She's been telling us for years. But all you're going to see ever is that little 14 or 15-second clip. You'll see Darlie plopping down on the ground with Drake, and you'll hear the preacher say, "This is a day of celebration." But other than that, you don't see anymore. The reason they don't put it out, to me, in my opinion, is that it doesn't show anything that's going to help. It's going to be worse because it's worse than the silly string video. Darlie's not grieving.
Well, right. If you had a video of your daughter and, it showed her extremely upset, you would put that out there.
That video is 14 hours long, so it's hard telling what they caught. Yeah. And the prosecutor, Greg Davis, he kept telling him, put it in evidence, show it. We have no problem with you showing that tape. And there's the defense that refused to show it because I think it's got something on it that's going to hurt her. Yeah. That's why Darlie Key don't put it. Why don't they put out her polygraph results where Darlie claims that her polygraph test was inconclusive? That means it couldn't tell if she was lying or not. Well, protocol would be that if you get an inconclusive result, is that you take the test over. Darlie never did it again. Why don't they put it out there? And Darlie tried to pretend like, well, somebody asked her, what about your polygraph? She said, well, the word they used was inconclusive, I believe. She tried to minimize it. No,
right.
You failed it. Barbara Davis, the one that wrote the book, Precious Angels, she says it. You failed it. I was there. I know what questions you failed. Darren failed his because they asked him, do you know the name of the person that killed your children? Well, because he believes Darlie did it. In his head, he believes that. So he knows
why he failed.
That's why he failed. He knows she did it.
Wow.
But anyways, we were trying to sign off of here. You've been on for quite a while, actually.
Yes, I've got to go. My hubby's going to kill me. I'm still in my robe. Haven't done anything today. But anyways, I've enjoyed this. I hope you'll come back on with me one night, and maybe we can go over the medical examiner's report and discuss it a little bit. And I can ask you some questions.
It'd be nice if we could find a Darlie supporter I'll talk to Danny Owen. Some of the ones that I get along with, some Darlie supporters, and maybe we can debate the case civilly Darren, I'm not going to do that to. Darren Gross, I'm not going to do that to.
Mm-mm.
Let him say why he
I
feels.
actually told Darren that I wasn't going to ask him any more questions during my lives when he's in my chat, because I know a lot of people ask him questions, and he can just sit back and enjoy the chat because he just likes listening to us sometimes anyways.
Yeah,
When we're
well,
not talking about Darlie, Darren still listens to my morning videos and things, you know.
Well, I told him if he could, if he comes on with me, I'm not going to debate the case with him. It may end up that way, but I'm not going to go at him just because he cares for Darlie.
Right.
He probably doesn't want to hear anything convincing. Richard Wright, her boyfriend before him, his name is Richard Wright. He didn't want to hear none of it, and he didn't last very long with her. He got his name tattooed across it, but